Fantastic. Good morning. All right, so it's as they say, time to land this plane, right? We've been talking for the entire summer about being blessed, and I honestly could probably talk about it for an entire year, because I think if you get the idea, if it really sinks in on you that you're blessed, it changes the kind of person that you are. So if you wake up in the morning and you think, man, am I lucky? Man, am I favored? Man, am I fortunate? Then you're going to act out of that feeling the rest of the day. And if you feel cheated, robbed, all these other kinds of things, then you're probably going to act out of that. So the idea is begin feeling blessed. And today I want to talk about the ultimate blessing. And I think the ultimate blessing Jesus coined in this phrase when Jesus said, freely you have received, freely you give. Freely you have received, freely you give. And later on Jesus said, it is better to give than to what? To receive. So the idea is, most of us, when we think of being blessed, we think of what we've received. But what you really want is you want to be in what I call the flow, where it's coming to you and it's going through you, right? That you're a vessel, that you're not a container, and what a lot of people think of as the job in life is to just contain more things, and then you make your container bigger and bigger. But the reality is you're a vessel, and God gives to you, and then God blesses you, and you are to be a blessing to others. In the scriptures in Genesis 12, God calls to Abraham, and he says, I'm going to bless you, and you will be a blessing, right? So you're blessed, but the purpose of being blessed is that you're to be a blessing. That's what the whole game, if I could say it, is all about. You're not there to how many things can I receive, but you're blessed to be a blessing. Now, this week, we lost power at our house. Anybody else lose power? All right, so we all know what that's like. And one of the things that we said during this series is you don't appreciate things until you don't have them, right? You don't really appreciate it until you don't have it, right? So I got Charlie out of bed this morning, and she's standing up, and she says, Daddy, first thing out of her mouth, do we have power today? She said, do we have power? And I said, yeah, honey, we do. We have power. And she got really happy. Nice to have power. And then there's a second question. Daddy, do we have food? Do we have food? Because we took all the food from the fridge and took it to Vicky's mom's house to try to save it. So then every time she needed something, we didn't have it. We didn't have milk. We didn't have chicken nuggets in the freezer. We didn't have any food. Dad, do we have power and do we have food? And I said, well, we have power, but we don't have food. Well, I kind of lied. I said, yeah, we have food. Just not the food that she wanted. And she put in a big order for breakfast. She said, Dad, then I want French toast with syrup, pizza, and milk, and bacon. You don't realize until you don't have it. And one of the things that we talked about was in the very beginning, God created, and then he blessed it. And I've been fascinated by what a blessing it is every single day to wake up when the sun rises. It's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. And I couldn't help but notice as I dove into this that one scientist after another was saying the exact same thing that I'm saying that you hear in the scripture, which is the whole thing is an absolute miracle. I was reading this week, there's a science professor at Southampton University, and this was the phrase, the title of the article. He said, all of earth is a miracle. And I want to show you a little video.
depths of space, you realize just the vast ocean of darkness, and we're on this little island.
Without a doubt, when you are climbing on your rocket, when you're launching into space, when the engine cuts out and you get to look back at Earth, absolutely every sacrifice is worth it. Every dream is worth it. The entire road there is worth it. Every bit of it is worth it.
It almost, I dare say, grieved me to think about how in the world am I going to describe this?
I will never forget that sight. The thin blue line of the atmosphere, the curve of the horizon. That's when it became real, really at a gut level. I'm actually in space.
All life is connected on this planet, and everything I do is in one way or another going to affect someone else that I share this planet with, or some other creature that I share this planet with.
The most significant realization to me was looking out and realizing not how far I was from Earth, but how close I was to Earth and how connected I was to Earth.
I'd give a lot to see that view again.
Man, I tell you, sometimes it takes, as we say, zooming out from your problems, right? Did anybody ever teach you this? If you got a problem, you got to zoom out. You got to see a little bigger. But most of us have not had the privilege of that kind of zooming. But if you get further and further and further out, all you realize is what an unbelievable miracle it is just to live on this rock. And the one scientist I was reading, he said he started running models to find out how lucky this rock was. And he ran model after model after model to try to find out how lucky is it that this particular rock could not burn up by the sun and all the things that should have happened. And this is what he concluded. He said it has some kind of feedback mechanism, this planet, and I don't have time. If you do your science homework, you can realize that it has something to do with even erupting volcanoes cooling this planet off. Anybody ever need to blow off some steam? You know what I mean? It's literally like our planet needs to blow off steam. There's a feedback mechanism tied to what he called a tremendous amount of luck. He said, this thing that you're living on is an absolute miracle. And the reason that I've been focused on it is because I think there are two ways to wake up in the morning. You can wake up and the first thing you can do is get myopic and focus on all of your problems. And that's easy to do because guess what? There are always challenges in life. And we need to face those challenges. That's a part of life. But if you begin your day thinking about how terrible it all is, instead of seeing the miracle that is there, it's the seeing. That's the key. Seeing. One person can wake up this way and see this. One person can wake up and see this. That's what made Jesus so special because he saw things that other people couldn't see. Do you remember how Jesus began the Sermon on the Mount, famous? Blessed are you. Blessed are you. Blessed are you. Now, this is not what he said. Blessed are you that get bumped into first class. Blessed are you when your boss emails you a raise. Blessed are you when the traffic always gets out of your way. That's how we think of, don't we think of blessings that way? So we had one the other day. We were going, since our power went out, we have been thinking about going on a little summer trip. We never did it all summer, so we went, we just spur of the moment, we went up to Mackinac Island. When we're getting there, and we have no plan whatsoever, which is pretty much the way I do most of my traveling. And we get there, and I said, Vicki, I think the hotel will sell us like a discounted ticket. They had a little sign, so I said, why don't you run in? So she ran in there, and we ran to the hotel, and she got these discounted ferry passes over to Mackinac Island. We were so excited, and so we saved $7. I was that makes me a really happy person. And we go over there, and I don't know about you, but you know, if you get to those things, and they have like the ferries run every half hour. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Now, even though I'm not that great of a, I should get a little more organized. Once I'm there, I really wish I'm on time. In other words, I really wish that I'm not going to be the guy waiting 29 minutes for the next one. Is anybody with me? Like, I want to be the guy that walks on and like, guess what? It's time to go. So we get over there, and the last thing I heard the lady say when she handed it off to Vicky was, you're going to have to go over there and get in line and get the actual ticket. This is like a paper thing that tells you you have a ticket. Vicky didn't hear that. She went right to the line where the people were getting on the ferry, and I said, you know what? Just to be safe, I didn't pull on a full-on argument. There's people around. I said, why don't you go in that line, and I'll go in this line. Wasn't that smart of me? See, guys, you should come to the thing. I could teach you a couple of things, right? The guys gathering. I said, well, just in case, right? And so she was there. She went all the way up to the line. I could see where her line was, and she was getting up there, and people were handing their tickets and running onto the ferry. And I was in the line where you get the tickets. And I was just about to get up to the thing, and she got to her thing, and she said, the lady was, no bueno, right? This is not the right. And she was pointing over to where I was. And I was so humble about it. You know what I mean? When she came over to where I was. And I could hear the lady telling the people in front of me that she was going to give them a ticket, but they probably weren't going to make it because they were closing the ferry door. No, I felt like Noah's Ark was closing in front of my eyes, you know. No, right? And so I'm like, I did it real nice, you know what I mean, in public. But anyway, she came over, and then the people in front of me, she told them that, but I could see that the lady was just letting a few last people on, and I'm thinking, this could work. This could work if these people move in front of me, if you move. And then they started asking all kinds of questions about parking. Have you ever beeped your horn at somebody when the light was green? Have you ever done that? I was trying to find a horn, just a little like, let's go, stop. Like, I want to get on that ferry. Why don't you step over here and ask all the questions you want to ask? But no, I stood there very patiently. Only patient on the inside. Has anybody ever been where I'm at? Only patient in here. Please, God, move. They finally got all their questions answered. I grabbed the papers and I was like, we got tickets. And she handed them over to me. We go sprinting over there, and the lady it was like a beautiful slow motion movie scene. You know what I mean? We got in there, and she grabbed our tickets, and she said, you're the last ones on this ferry. And I said, man, do I feel blessed today. Huh? I told Vicky, I said, Joel Osteen doesn't have that kind of favor. I'm telling you, I feel blessed today, right? And she said, I'm going to tell everybody you said that, right? Isn't that funny how we feel like these are the blessings. And the real truth is every single day, it's a ridiculous blessing to wake up. That's where we got to be. That's where we have to live. And that's why Jesus was trying to convince people. Why did he start with, blessed are the poor, blessed are the persecuted, blessed are those that are mourning? I mean, he takes the people that you would think they have no shot. This is not what blessed is. And he said, blessed is this person and that person and this person. Why? Because I think Jesus could see things that sometimes we can't see. And perhaps that's the whole goal this summer, is to elevate our seeing, that we can see better, that you can see that you're blessed. You're a different person when you see that way. Jesus saw abundance everywhere. You know what I mean? Like everywhere. So like me, when we go somewhere, food turns out it's a bit expensive on Mackinac, right? So we're like, Vicki and I are still trying to figure this out. Like I am pro Charlie not ordering a meal at dinner, because why? She eats 2 bites, and then we get a to-go box that sits in the refrigerator until it gets, what? Thrown away. So in other words, maybe it depends on the situation, but turned out the other day she ordered the little kitty cheeseburgers, right? They had 2 little sliders, and so, of course, she ate like 3 bites, and then she found some other kids that were running around, and she wanted to play, and we wanted to have a nice dinner together anyway, and these people had parents that were watching all the kids, and we just figured, let's call it free babysitting, right? Or a $10 over-expensive cheeseburger that it's discounted babysitting. So, but I take the cheeseburgers and I stick them in the cooler. I don't have a wrapper or anything like that. I stick them in the cooler, and like a day and a half later when we got home, did I tell you we have no food in our house? So I just eat them, right? And so I'm that way. Then there's Jesus. He goes to this wedding. They run out of wine, John chapter 2. It's a humiliation and embarrassment. And his mother comes to him and says to him, they've run out of wine. Now, if you run out of wine, there's already been plenty of wine drinking at a wedding. Could you start there? If you run out. No, there isn't anymore. And Jesus has them get stone jars that they use for ceremonial washing. These jars were about 30 gallons of water in them. They're for washing. So just so you know, when he said, go get the jars, if you don't have the context of the story, this is not like a jar, like a mason jar. 36 times 30, 180 gallons. Now you know the story. He turns it into what? Turns out Jesus was always thinking in abundance, leftovers, right? When they multiply the loaves and the fishes, there's always what? More than enough. There's always more than enough. God creates in the beginning, Genesis, it says this, in Genesis 1, let us make man in our likeness and image, right? He created man in his image, male and female, he created them, and he blessed them, and he said this, be fruitful and increase in number. Be fruitful, multiply. You're a multiplier. God built the whole system to multiply. That's how it works. When things are healthy, they're multiplying, they're giving. And when they're not healthy, they aren't. I have a pear tree in the backyard. It no longer gives. It no longer multiplies. It's what you call unhealthy. So when things are healthy, they give. When you're living and you're healthy, you're just giving. That's what you're doing. When you're unhealthy, you're not giving. When Jesus says, freely you have received, freely you give, it's not a matter of forcing people to give. You ever been forced to give or finagled to give? It's not a good feeling, is it? But when you give freely, you don't even think about it. It doesn't even dawn on me. I'm just blessed. We were coming home yesterday. We stopped in, went to Mackinac City, which I think is the #1 tourist place in Michigan, but it's close rival to Flint, Michigan. So we stopped there on the way home, and we went to Flint. And we had to stop to the homeland, and we got Charlie acclimated right to the environment there and everything. And we stopped at Chipotle, and then she found a little friend, and so she went, instead of sitting with us, she sat with her friend. And Charlie has all these little things she collects. They're the tiniest little microscopic things that she's always losing. There's like a little fake diamond. It's this big. She calls them her gems. She stuffs her little purse with all these things. They're incredibly precious to her. So if she loses one anywhere, it is a disaster. And they're just, she's always pulling them out of her purse, and you're walking around, and it drops them on the pavement, and you can't find it, and the whole production stops. So we get to this Chipotle, and she makes this little friend while they're standing in line, and the next thing you know, she starts pulling things out of her purse and giving them to her. It's completely unprompted. I mean, I have to tell you, when I say a meltdown, it's an absolute meltdown if she loses one of these. And she just started giving these things to her friend. Freely you have received, what? Freely you give. Giving is only good when it's free. It's never good when it's forced. You can read about that in Corinthians when Paul says, don't force your giving. But then you're not there yet. Like we forced Charlie to say thank you. Who's ever forced your kids to say please? We're going to force it until it becomes a habit, right? We're forcing it. But then all of a sudden it starts to flow. It just starts to come. When you're healthy and you're feeling blessed, it's just spontaneous. your life becomes a spontaneous eruption of giving. When I talk about giving, I'm talking about all kinds of giving forgiveness, giving kindness, giving someone a break that needs a break, giving someone a space to pull their car in, just giving. It's spontaneous because of the way that you feel. I think Jesus lived that way because I think he was connected to the Father, right? And because he was connected to the Father, he never felt lack. Uh-oh, what am I going to do now? There's got to be something there for us. If you feel connected to the Father, you never feel lack. Oh no, what am I going to do? I'm connected to my Father. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He knows what I need even before I ask it. And if you feel connected, then all of a sudden, the giving flows freely. See, perhaps spiritual maturity is just feeling and knowing you're connected, and then you're in the flow. You're feeling blessed. And when you feel blessed and you know you're connected, then you know there's no shortage, there's no lack. These seeds, they just multiply. Every pear tree, when it's healthy, it just gives. You don't have to squeeze the pears out of it. You don't have to beg. What happens? It just comes. When you're healthy, it just comes. I won't look. I won't look. Who here has ever been unhealthy? When you're unhealthy, man, then people have to squeeze it out of you. To be polite, to be gracious, to be kind. But when you're healthy, it's just there. It just flows. A lot of it comes to how you feel, how you see. I think that's why you remember the call of Abraham. He says, I'm going to bless you and you will be a blessing. And I think Abraham struggled. And so he had to keep having these experiences. And so a few chapters later, Genesis 15, God says to Abraham, come here, let me show you the stars in the sky. He takes him out to the stars at night and he says, count them if you can. This is an awakening experience, if you can count these. And quickly, Abram realizes that he can't count the stars, and God says, so shall your offspring be. These are awakening moments where your eyes are open to the power and the majesty of God's creation, and you realize there's no lack. Right before we got on the island, we knew that there were going to be fudge and candy shops at every turn. And we had a 3-year-old with us. So we had a family strategy session on the boat ride. And in the family strategy session, Vicki very wisely, because she was making up for her other error, decided that she's going to speak next week, I think. So, no, she very wisely said to Charlie, you are being such a good girl that you get to pick one special thing that you get to buy at the candy store. So you can think about it. We kept saying, you get to get one thing, you get to get one thing. And so we make our way into the candy store, and she finds a lollipop. I think I may have a picture for you there. Bigger than her head. All right, that lollipop's now 3 days old. It looks exactly like that. It's got a little dent in the middle, right, about this big around, right? And that lollipop, you can lick and lick and lick and lick and lick, and you realize that there's more than you can lick. And I thought, that's it. We're beyond blessed. There's more than you can imagine. What God has given us, prepared for us, done for us, it's beyond our comprehension. You almost need one of those starry night experiences where God takes you and shows you the stars, and you just go, this is only what I can see with my visible eye. Now in the summer of the James Webb Telescope pictures coming in, we realize it's ridiculous. And here we are, unbelievably blessed. But it's up to you. At the end of the day, you can choose to believe. You can believe that you're blessed. Or you can look at your circumstances and decide, no, it's not enough. I'm going to choose to be bitter. I'm going to choose to be angry and resentful. I'm going to choose to be jealous. And with those choices come all of these feelings. And I honestly believe it's a downward spiral from there. In the weeks coming, I'm going to do a series on the book of Romans. And I'm really excited about it because we're going to go to Rome, and I'm going to take pictures there and video, and we're going to tie it all in together so you can have a ton of on-the-ground footage, connecting a very ancient book to our modern-day problems. It's going to be, I'm really excited about it. But the letter, it begins with this: choosing to recognize or ignore God. That's how the whole thing starts. It's a spiral. And it starts with this: do you choose to ignore God, or do you choose to recognize him and be grateful? And from gratitude, there's a spiral of goodness. And from the lack of gratitude is a downward spiral. Think about this. From a lack of gratitude is a downward spiral in your life. Just because you're ungrateful. Because you don't wake up today and say, I'm ridiculously blessed. I'm blessed. So, one more picture I want you to think about as we end this series. Here's the picture, right? This is how I want you to live. This is how I want you to live your life, all right? Charlie took that lollipop and licked it and licked it and licked it and licked it and licked it. All right? I want you to remember this picture. This is why. God bless us all with purple tongues, right? To remember that life is more than you can lick, right? That you are not just blessed, not just, oh, you got a good parking spot or you got on the ferry before the next. You're ridiculously blessed the minute you open your eyes. 1,000,000 miracles by morning. Let's stand. We'll have a closing prayer. It's never been about just receiving, and it's never been just about giving. It's been about being in the flow, the giving and the receiving, being in the dance, being a part of the party. That's what it's always been about. Some people make it all about giving. Some people make it all about receiving. But the reality is, you're blessed to be a blessing. That's the whole flow. That's what God wants us to live, in the middle of that flow. Jesus says, freely you have received, and freely you give. Our loving God, we thank you that we don't have to look hard to realize how blessed we are. All around us are miracles. And in fact, today we're living in the middle of a miracle right now. If only our eyes are open to see it. And so we just stop today to say thank you. Let our lives live a reflection of your loving goodness. Let us live to give. Let us live in the flow of your grace and goodness, realizing just as Abraham was blessed to be a blessing, so are we. God bless us with purple tongues. In Christ's name, amen. Amen. Happy Sunday, Orchard Grove.